This is Survival of the Fittest.
This is Curtis and the Guff on AM 970. The Answer.
6 minutes after the hour of 5. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are assembled at the Statler Grill. So nice, owners Vinny and Max have decided to do it twice because of the schizophrenic way that my partner, Governor David Patterson, has operated this week, like a Walenda on the tightrope, like Tiny Tim tiptoeing through the political tulips. We started this week with Scott Stringer sitting right where our guest is today, former Governor Eliot Spitzer, and I'm in a dilemma here. I don't know who to call governor.
We'll both answer your question.
Two governors here at the very same time. It doesn't get any better than that. And let me just make mention, Eliot Spitzer, as you run for your candidacy September 10th to determine who will be the Democratic nominee in the general election November 5th to become the next city controller, your adversary, Scott Stringer. But when you started this week, after taking it on the chops from the main editorial boards at the News, the Post, the New York Times, and then to see your very dear Kumbaricic, Governor Patterson, at 135th and Lenox, kissing babies, campaigning with Scott Stringer,
right?
To basically take the job that you're fighting for. What was your initial reaction? This is a guy you had on as your lieutenant governor.
Let me ask you this. Who's he ending the week with? Who won this battle? Now, look, here's the thing. David and Scott have known each other a long time. David had said nice things about Scott, endorsed him, maybe, I don't even know, before I got into the race. Politics is, in many respects, a business where timing matters. Scott had been running for 3 years, I think, first for mayor, then for controller. Anything else? Has he run for anything else? Maybe I missed it along the way here. And so David was with him, said nice things about him, and that's wonderful. But it's more than a cliche. The only endorsement I want and need is that of voters, and so far every poll has me up 18, 19 points, and that's cool. The editorial boards don't vote. And if they get it the wrong, I won in 98 without him, and which was a hard race. I won in 02 and 06 with them when it was kind of clear I would win from the first moment. So they get it wrong as often as everybody else.
Now, I was amazed at the end of the Channel 2 WCBS debate, which all of a sudden Time Warner decided, okay, we're at war with CBS, but for a full hour,
right,
we're going to let our viewers watch Eliot Spitzer tangle with Scott Stringer. I think some of it based on the fact that the first two debates
were kind of edgy.
Very aggressive.
Right.
I mean, it was like going to a heavyweight fight.
They thought they were getting WWF.
Yeah.
And instead they got like two kids playing in the sandbox.
But at the very end of the debate, when the host and hostess said, hey, would you say something nice to one another about one another? You said your pleasantries, and Scott Stringer went on, and then finally ended up by saying not only would he belly up to the bar with you at some point in the future.
Yeah, he thought I was going to pick up the tab. I think that's why.
But he said he would have you come over to the house, his casa, and babysit for his two sons. His wife went nuts. She starts tweeting on Twitter. Are you out of your mind, Scott?
It was... I don't want to make too much of it, but on the other hand, I think it is instructive, because here's the thing. He's been taking shots at me saying, don't trust the guy. And yet he trusts me enough to babysit for his kids. And so it seems to me, wait a minute, I think it kind of puts the lie to the entirety of his campaign against me. If he's willing to, and he meant it sincerely. Now, we didn't negotiate what he's going to pay me. You may remember 10 minutes before that, I said I would give up the entire salary being controller. So now I got to get some extra, income next year. So maybe I'll show up and babysit and he'll pay me. But to be serious, if he's willing to let me babysit for his kids, that says a whole lot about all the other stuff he's saying about me.
Yeah, because Governor Patterson, as much as I know you, and you've met my oldest son, little Anthony Chester Sliwa, you haven't yet met Hunter and Carter. He's 9.
9, okay.
And Carter
you got
5.
the teenage years ahead of you.
Right, and Hunter is 2.
Good luck.
There ain't no way in hell I'm going to let you come babysit 3 of them, 2 of them, or 1 of them, Governor David Patterson.
I'm an excellent babysitter, I'll have you know. I remember I was babysitting once, and this kid wanted me to read something to him because he realized if I tried to read it, he could leave the room, and I had no idea where he went.
So that's what happened when I asked you to read the budget.
Right.
When we return right here, we started the week with Scott Stringer. in which it seemed like Governor David Patterson was attached to him like an appendage. All of a sudden, there's no Scott Stringer. We have two governors sitting here. It couldn't be more respect. There couldn't be more understanding of one another's positions in this race. I've never seen anything like it in all the political races I've been involved with, but we're going to get back to the action of asking Eliot Spitzer why it is he thinks he should win the Democratic nomination September 10th and then go on to the general election November 5th.
Curtis, the break is over. We might as well go back to, because you talked right through the break.
You are a Weisenheimer and a half. Right here at the Stadler Grill, we want to thank Vinny and Max for rolling out the red carpet. Great food. You can belly up to the bar. They don't water down the drinks like a TGIF in New Jersey. And great steaks and chops and fish and veggies. And the ambiance. Can you get it? Can it get any better than this? Right here on your place to be, AM 970, The Answer. Let's hit that point that we left on, which was that last night in the contentious period of the debate, Scott Stringer turns to Eliot Spitzer and says, you know, when you left the governorship, you left behind for Governor Patterson $22 billion deficit. So Patterson had to do some heavy lifting. Now, you've addressed that before once by phone, but you only had a brief amount of time. Could you fully explain what your feelings were at that point, knowing this man had run with you as your lieutenant governor and had been a very, very supportive influence of what you were trying to do?
Look, first let me begin with an obvious statement. When I asked David if he would join the ticket to be lieutenant governor, I did it because he had the skills, the intellect, the government experience that was necessary and appropriate. And I, to this day, believe that was the case and is the case. And so David was a powerful and important addition to the ticket, and we governed together. I was governor, he was lieutenant governor for that first stretch of time. During that period, we passed in April of 2007, the first budget we did, what I think is a spectacular budget. It put an additional $1.76 billion into New York City's educational system. We fought a tough battle, David remembers, to reform health care, something that absolutely had to be done because the Medicaid budget at the time, measured either in aggregate dollars or per capita spending, was simply unsustainable. We created a stem cell research fund. We did so many different things in the budget, balanced the budget, no tax increases, on time. All that was great. We turned the corner into 2008. And back in December of 2007, I said, I'm beginning to see embers here that could be problematic in terms of the economy. But we proposed a budget that was, again, balanced. It was appropriate, spending in line with the revenue that the state was going to get. And again, continued the increased investment in education, something everybody believed was necessary, and the reform of health care. Those are the two big pillars of the state budget. Then you have obviously your costs of employees and then pension obligations, et cetera. But education and health care are the critical pillars, and how much you put into each one of those domains determines what the overarching spending trajectory will be. And we got this budget directly in line with where we thought we should be, and we were proud of it. Now, what happened, as David said a couple minutes ago, we hit the fiscal wall kind of late March of 2008. Am I correct, David? It was late March, early April, when things really went over the cliff.
Yes, just in time for me to...
But this was, remember, this is when things really cratered in the financial markets. Now, go back a bunch of years, and I don't want to go back to the AG period, but some of us, small number of us, I included, had been saying, guys, there's treacherous stuff going on out here. Put that aside. When David then took over, the financial crisis was beginning to hit, and we were suddenly going into the abyss that was the result of the Wall Street dangerous behavior that has now been the subject of a lot of conversation. So at the time we put the budget together for 2008, it was the right budget. And what Scott has been saying about leaving a huge deficit is simply ain't the case.
People couldn't be more critical of Governor David Patterson at the time, particularly the New York Post. Today, the New York Post loves David Patterson. He can do no wrong. He could run for president tomorrow because he's embraced Scott Stringer.
If you're looking for constancy in the media anywhere, you ain't going to see it. Certainly the New York Post.
He's replaced Alexander Hamilton on the front page. Governor, and again, this would apply to both of you. Boy, but I'm schizophrenic here. But when we come back, you're in the private sector now, so I can't touch you. But
you can.
If, per se, you beat Scott Stringer in the primary September 10th, and remember, all registered Democrats, Republicans, you got to vote in the primary. You can't have these dismal turnouts that we've had of late. And then if you get into the general election, I'm supporting Republican John Burnett. You need to know that straight out of the box.
Wait a minute. Why am I doing this show?
John Burnett, November 5th. The over-under point spread.
All right, here's the deal. I will buy you dinner if the Republican wins this race.
It's got to be at the start.
I'll do it here. I'll do it here.
But...
in fact, if the Republican wins that night, I'll buy everybody here dinner. Ain't gonna happen.
The moment you get sworn in, I will file a Freedom of Information Act against you.
Why?
When we come back.
What do you want?
No.
I'll give it to you. You don't file freedom.
No.
Don't waste your time. But what do you want?
When we come back.
All right. Okay.
Because this has been bugging me for 20 years.
I'm scared.
20 years.
I'm scared.
Freedom of Information Act here, Governor Patterson, and you can't protect him on this one. Right here at the Statler Grill, 33rd between 6th and 7th. Come on down. Great meals, great ambiance, and they don't water down the drinks. Brought to you by AM 970, The Answer. Ladies and gentlemen, we have returned to the Statler Grill. This place is jumping, packed to the rafters. In 1 week alone, Governor David Patterson has delivered two of the primary candidates that have dominated media attention in running for the city controller spot. Never have I ever seen this kind of attention. I mean, think of it. People like Beam, Golden have been in these positions before. They may have been bright, they may have crunched their numbers, but they didn't attract any attention. Even Bill Thompson, when he won the Democratic primary, was not attracting a lot of attention. This is the first time that the controller's race is even with the mayor's race, may have even trumped the mayor's race in many instances. And Governor David Patterson has dominated the media cycle starting in the week with Scott Stringer, 135th in Lenox. Get out the vote because Eliot Spitzer has a 3-1 advantage with minority voters. And then at the end of the week, you're attached like an appendage to Eliot Spitzer.
Whoa, I got to defend David. He's an appendage to nobody.
Well, he is to me every night from 5 to 7 on the drive home.
That's your problem.
But as I said as we went into the break, Eliot Spitzer, I couldn't care about your financial records. I didn't even care that you said, I'll just take $1 like Bloomberg if I get elected. Okay, good.
Yeah, I can't believe I said that.
But I'm not interested in your medical records like everybody wanted Bill Clinton's medical records when he was running for president. I have been just obsessed with the fact that when I heard 20 years ago that you had a perfect LSAT score, perfect,
right?
that was impossible. And then what made it worse, Chuck Schumer chimes in and said, I had a perfect LSAT score also. So I figure I'm going to get both of you guys.
All right.
And I'm going to cold bust you. So I call up every imaginable agency, federal, state, local. I call the group that's responsible. They say you would have a better chance getting their birth certificate, their health records, any other personal records. We're not giving them up. Are you ready to say declaratively right here on Curtis and the Gov that you had a perfect LSAT record? Perfect?
Here's what I'll do. I will tell you I got a perfect score on the LSAT. But I'm not going to give you the proof until Donald Trump puts up $5 million to give to somebody once I produce it. Now, he does the $5 million. I'll get it to you in 24 hours.
You think Governor Patterson, we could get Chuck Schumer to match that? Because I don't believe he had a perfect LSAT score either.
Well, we can certainly ask him. If he'll come down here to the Statler Grill one Tuesday night and spend a couple hours with us.
If you become city controller, Eliot Spitzer, you also have the power to audit.
Right.
Many agency people have said that's like putting a stick in a schoolyard and letting the school bully come at you and give you a beatdown. The last person you want to give the power of an audit to is Eliot Spitzer, who's been known to have anger management issues, to be hot-headed, to be a steamroller, and to want to settle all scores like Michael Corleone without violence. But to settle
I've never been compared to Michael Corleone, but that's okay.
In some circles, as you know, that would be considered a compliment. But to settle scores,
I'm not going near that one.
Administratively,
right?
So what could you say to all these folks in government that you would not use that power in a personal way?
But first of all, never have, never would. It would be wrong to do it. The only people who have really made that an issue or tried to claim it to be the case are the ones I've prosecuted. The ones who we convicted, the ones on Wall Street and elsewhere whom we showed to be acting illegally, improperly. I know they're going to respond that way. They always have, and that's fine. But when I stood up against Wall Street, they said, he's just angry. Of course, after 2008, everybody said, wait a minute, he was right. When we went after those who weren't paying their low-wage workers, they said the same thing. The people who've been on the wrong side of these cases, sure, they don't like me, that's fine. But you know what? You mentioned Michael Corleone. Back when I did organized crime cases, even they said at the end of the day after they were convicted, they said, okay, he was right. The guys on Wall Street never had the decency to acknowledge that we were right and they were wrong. They're still trying to rewrite history, pretend nothing happened. To the extent something happened, it was somebody else's fault. To the extent that they got their bonuses and we got the short end of the stick, they're saying, too bad, that's how the world is supposed to work. So I stand by every case, everything we did. And let me say this, to the extent that people are worried about being audited, maybe that suggests there's a good reason to audit them.
Now, Eliot, when I was governor, the controller was Tom DiNapoli. He was the state controller.
Right.
And sometimes there was a little tension in the relationship because I thought that the controller would write reports like, he needs to make the legislature cut the budget, not by $10 billion, but by $15 billion. In other words, because you're not the one actually involved in negotiations, right, you can pretty much say anything. And by the way, Tom DiNapoli is one of my best friends. And I didn't always think it was him as much as people in his office who were trying to create attention for themselves. How do you think that tension between the executive and the controller should work?
Look, tension isn't inevitable. I think there is a different perspective. Look, the old cliche, where you stand depends on where you sit, right? The person who's the controller does, as David just said, have an easier job. It's easy to say, oh, cut the budget by X, unless you have to do it. David and I, both having been governors, dealt with the legislature, can tell you it's a very hard thing to do. And so you have to understand and write these reports. Having been a governor, I can tell you I would bring that perspective to the controller's office and wouldn't simply, give advice freely as though it's easy to do. And keep in mind, the name of my show at CNN was In the Arena. You remember the great Teddy Roosevelt quotation, the credit goes to the man in the arena, not to the critic, right? Criticism is easy, doing is hard. And so I think the role of the controller should be to help the process of doing, help the process of governance. And that was the relationship I had with George Pataki.
Well,
George Pataki and I, different parties, I was AG, he was governor, we got along great.
All right, but when we come back, I want to talk about the history of governors and lieutenant governors. In my lifetime, it's always been contentious. In fact, Mario Cuomo always hated the way you, Kerry, treated him, and then his lieutenant governor went into waste management, left being lieutenant governor. Horrible with Pataki and Betsy McCoy. There's a history there.
Right, but David and I got along great.
Well, that's what I want to find out. What was the magic there? Because I know the state chairman and other Democrats were not in favor of you choosing David Patterson at first. They were in total opposition. When we come back, why both of you are so respectful of one another with all that you've been through and the fact that you treated him the way a person should be treated as a lieutenant governor when you were governor, right here on your place to be.
From the Statler Grill, an AM 970. The Answer.
5 minutes to the top of the hour. We're back at the Statler Grill. Governor, which one is that? Governor Eliot Spitzer, followed by Governor David Patterson in the House tonight. And in 1 week alone, we've had on Scott Stringer, Manhattan Borough President, running for the Democratic nomination to become the next city controller, followed by Eliot Spitzer. And it's been all David Patterson all the time. And during the break, I felt like I was either Richard Grasso or Ken Langone. I'm trying to listen to your conversation, guys, and you're elbowing me out. And what's this? Hey, Max, Vinny, did the governor tell you he's out of here at 6 o'clock?
Yep, I'm out of here at 6 o'clock. Jerry Crowley knows about it. The powers that be at the station know I have to leave at 6 o'clock.
What time are you leaving, Eliot Spitzer?
I leave with David. You're on your own, buddy.
Wait. This program goes to 7 o'clock. You have chutzpah. You have onions.
That's what they tell me.
Now, I have sat here for close to a full hour and observed whether this is just political shtick, which I've seen other politicians do, and they hate one another with a passion. There's obviously a genuine respect and a fondness that both of you have. When Al Del Bello was the lieutenant governor after being mayor of Yonkers, county executive of Westchester, for Mario Cuomo, who used to scream, I will never treat a lieutenant governor the way I was treated by you, Kerry. Al Del Bello left halfway through to become...
He sure did.
Yeah. CEO
of waste management. Yeah. What does that tell you right there? He just wanted to get out of it. And every lieutenant governor seems to have had problems with their governor.
Pataki and Betsy McCoy, Cuomo and Kerry... the list goes on and on.
Why is it that both, first of all, you fought to have David Patterson on your ticket. All the powers to be said, ixnay to Patterson.
Right.
Why did you do that? And why were you
Because
able to maintain your relationship?
I respected him. I liked him. I thought intellectually he had the tools for the position. I was looking for somebody who was in the legislature who could help us work with the legislature, which is an important thing for a governor to be able to do. David had all those pieces. It was a perfect match, and we liked each other.
Ebony and Ivory, huh?
Oh.
What is this, Paul McCartney
No,
and
that's
Stevie
me and
Wonder?
Scott Stringer.
Oh, so you ended by professing your love and respect. Let me just tell you, Governor David Patterson, we may be partners, but I will never have you come home and babysit for my sons.
No, they might
probably
leave the
couldn't
house.
Anyway, thank you, Eliot Spitzer.
Thanks for inviting me. I had a great time.
September 10th, registered Democrats, Republicans, important to come out and vote. And hey, I got a word for you, Governor David Patterson. Oofa! As we continue in the next hour, I'm going to fix your wagon. Wait till you see what I'm going to do in the turnaround. Up next, you were voted literally loser of the week. And I'm going to get into that with City and State, as you run out the door.
Opinion.